About 6 years ago, I began noticing a new generation coming up who looked at art in very different ways. This new generation was born after 1976 and the end of the Cultural Revolution. They had no experience with the old repressive China that the older generation of artists were so reacting to. Also, many of them were products of the one-child policy, and all of them had grown up with the benefits of the open door policy, of new influences coming into China, international companies coming into China, international art coming into China. And finally, I think one of the greatest impact on their lives was the emergence of the internet. With WeChat, one of the things I wanted to look at specifically was how different these artists dealt with the issue of Chinese identity. If I didn't tell you that it was a show of Chinese young artists, many of them you would not assume came from China. Some of them, like Sun Shun or Shi Jiying, is using ink painting, so that might be a tip-off to you. Or in some of the videos, the faces are Chinese, so that may be a tip to you. But many of them are looking at the issue of identity and rebelling against Chinese stereotypes. They're not using dragons, they're not using Maos, they're not using pagodas, they're not using references to the Cultural Revolution. They are very much looking at the issue of identity as it is formed in the 21st century. When you're making your art here, do you think about China at all? Do you think of yourself as having a Chinese identity?
I don't think myself as a Chinese artist, but I think of myself as a Chinese artist. But when I make my work, I'm not really constantly thinking about my Chinese heritage. But I think my work is the result of my experience as growing up in China as a female. So I think I am a Chinese artist, but at the same time, I'm not really purposefully making connection to Chinese heritage.
One of the things that I found really interesting is you're not the only woman artist that I found was making work about gender identity. And yet when I asked them, are you feminist? And it's a lot of the work I think of as extremely feminist, like your work, or Lu Yang, who has one of the videos in the exhibition, they say absolutely not. Like, how do you relate to the word feminist?
I don't think of myself as a feminist, but I think I'm pro-female. The reason is when I was making the work, I really didn't thought about feminism. I didn't know much about it. Maybe I'm feeling very similar feeling as the feminists, but my idea was just showing the alternative type of relationship that actually can work. And also, I don't really believe this is something I need to advocate for everybody to do the same, because I think everybody is different. So, I mean, maybe the traditional stereotype of relationship works for somebody. So I don't really think that everybody needs to have the same right, you know. It's really depend on person, that's just my opinion.
I'm really curious. One thing that happens to me when I write about this art a lot is people say to me that they feel like Chinese art is becoming too Western. If someone said that about your work, what would you say?
I think people say that about my work, especially I think when I meet Chinese photographers, they will say, your photo looks very American or very Western. I think, yeah, it is, but I don't believe in there should be a way that Chinese art should look like, or Chinese photography should look like. That just doesn't make sense to me, and I don't really think there should be some Western way or Eastern way of showing work, because I am Chinese, so whatever I make, however it looks like, it is Chinese art.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in agreement with you, but I know that this conversation comes up a lot when I'm in China.
Yeah.
where people are very concerned about losing Chinese identity?
I think it really depends on who you talk to. If you talk to some people with more traditional type of mind, they were really concerned about how, these young kids are doing something totally different look than what Chinese traditional art look like. But if you talk to, I think the younger generation, they really don't care. And I think because China was closed before, and through the open policy, and we are suddenly exposed to so much things outside the world, that just attracts us. That just, our generation is really attracted to internationally whatever is outside of China.